Hello everyone, how's it going? Billy Ballgame here, back with another video. On this channel, I'm just a dude who loves to talk about baseball cards. And what I want to talk about today is a recent show that I went to with my buddy Chris from Missouri and my buddy Tom. So today is Monday, the 16th of June, and we went to this show Saturday morning. It's called the Machinist Hall, and it's in St. Louis, Missouri. And this show's been going on quite a while. I remember wanting to go to this show when I was in high school, and believe me, that was a long time ago. So this show has been around, and I've always wanted to go to this show and have never been. There are a few other shows that go on fairly regularly along with this one in St. Louis that I've been to, but for some reason I've just never made it to this one. And this show is put on by a guy, as if you've seen Chris's most recent video, a guy by the name of Ron Estes is the one that puts on this show, and he sets up at the Columbia show, and he's been well known as a dealer in Middle Missouri since I'm guessing the 80s. I remember him going all the way back to the 90s when I was in high school, running into him at shows. So it was awesome to get to go to this show, and a whole lot of fun hanging out with, of course, two of my best friends locally within the card community. Anytime you get to hang out with Chris and Tom and go to a show, it's a great time. So let me tell you a little bit about the show. So Chris alluded to it in his video. There was not a lot of vintage at this show. There was, and maybe not a lot isn't the right word. Ron Estes is a big vintage dealer, and he was there. And then there's another vintage dealer there that has a lot of stuff. He's a little bit overpriced, and the second guy, not Ron. Ron's great with his stuff. So there were a few different dealers that had vintage, but I have never been to a card show in my recollection within the last, 6-8 years or so, that had so few graded cards. Even a lot of the newer stuff wasn't graded. The vast majority of the vintage stuff was ungraded, and that's not necessarily a statement with any intent to it. That's just an observation. And for me, I would love to buy ungraded cards, get them at decent prices, send them into SGC, get them turned around quickly with fair grades, and be able to save money that way. But I've discussed it here recently. I think that is getting harder and harder to do, because a lot of the times when you find ungraded cards that are sharp, they're pretty expensive. And then, in my opinion, SGC's grading has gotten more inconsistent, at least within the last year. So that's a little bit tougher to do now. And honestly, I prefer to buy graded cards. Just for me, it makes sense that way. And I don't have to worry about bad lighting at a show, hiding a flaw, or missing a crease or a wrinkle in a card or anything like that. If I buy it already graded, the hassle and all the fuss, it's already over with. I'm probably going to pay a little bit more for one already graded, but a lot of the worry is taken out of the equation that way. But there weren't a whole lot of graded cards at this show. I was really surprised at how few graded cards there were. I would say less than 50%, and probably well under 50% of the dealers' inventories across just the whole berth of the show were graded. And so I don't know if that's part of a bigger movement within the hobby. And I don't really have too many feelings on it. And again, I don't mind buying ungraded cards. I'll buy them all day as long as they're priced reasonably. But a lot of times what you find is when you go to a show, and I've talked about this before, when you find ungraded cards, a lot of the time they're priced in the 7 range for vintage cards, and a lot of times you'll look at them and be like, well, that's a 4 or a 5 best case scenario. So for me, in a lot of these cases, it just doesn't make sense to buy ungraded cards at 7 prices. And so other than that, I don't really have too many feelings on finding that few of cards at a show. Again, I don't know, maybe if it's part of a bigger movement outside of the YouTube card community within the hobby itself, that less people are getting stuff graded. I don't know. Just an observation. Like I said, I kind of have mixed emotions on it a little bit because I prefer to buy graded cards, usually, unless, like I said, I can find ungraded cards for cheap. But at this show, it was definitely more difficult to find ungraded cards, especially in vintage. And it was interesting as someone who's never been to this show before. Now, Chris says there's usually more vintage at this show, but there were at least probably 5 or 6, maybe a few more dealers that at least had some level of vintage at this show. There were, I would safely say, at least 3 that was their primary focus, was vintage. And there were the 3 dealers that do focus mainly on vintage. They had a lot of cards there, and they weren't all overpriced. But again, for me, in poor lighting, I would rather not take the risk and just buy a graded card if I can find one in what I'm looking for. But the 3 dealers there, they had a lot of vintage. And I did pick up a card. For me, I picked up what I would consider a big card. Chris and Tom both picked up cards. I think this is kind of an anomaly. I think I spent more money at this show than Chris did, which is probably the first time this has ever happened. But again, for me, I bought a big card. And we had a great time at the show. I planned on filming video at the show. I filmed video of us walking in, but then once we got into the show, for me, it's hard to film video at the show when it's really crowded, and this show was pretty busy. And so it's hard for me to just bust out my camera and find a place to film from in a busy show. But a bigger part of why I didn't film video was just because I enjoyed walking the show. I enjoyed walking around with Tom and Chris, talking about cards, looking at cards. And so for me, I just kind of get in the zone and wrapped up in the moment. And then I don't really think, oh, well, let me get my camera out and film some video. So I apologize to you all that I'm not bringing you any video from the show. Next week's show in Boonville, I'll be there all day. So I'm hoping at some point I can film some video. So stay tuned to that one. That will be coming up hopefully right after the show on Saturday, next Monday or somewhere around there. But this was, I needed this. So I hadn't been to a show since the Columbia show. I hadn't bought anything other than those few cards I bought when we went home. And so I needed to get out and go to a show with Tom and Chris and just shoot the breeze on the way there, shoot the breeze back, and pick up, for me, a big card. So without further ado, I will go ahead and show you what I picked up. And this is a pretty awesome card that I've wanted for quite a while. I've got it saved on my saved listings on eBay currently, and it's a Ron Cey rookie card. So Ron Cey is not a Hall of Famer, but he's on this card with another pretty good baseball player that you guys may have heard of by the name of Mike Schmidt. And this to me is a huge card that I've wanted since I've been a kid, because again, I've loved Hall of Fame, and at that point in time, future Hall of Fame rookie cards as long as I can remember. And so this is just an awesome card for me to be able to pick up, to find at this show, graded, when graded vintage was kind of tough to come by. And this is actually one card I mentioned on the way there that I could see myself picking up. So I'm happy to add this to the collection. It's been a long time coming. I'm super stoked to have added this card. And this is a perfect example of how I collect, because I'm a budget collector. I'm not a grade collector. I am a collector that when eye appeal matches budget, that is the right card for me to pick up. And this is a perfect example of that, because as you can see, it's a little bit off-centered left to right, but this is, in my opinion, a really nice example of this card, because these are hard to find centered. So just for this to be there, decently priced, with really nice eye appeal, in my opinion. It's not perfectly centered, but man, you would be hard pressed. It would take a long time to find one that's dead centered on this card. So for me, this was the right card to pick up at this show. And I've had this in my save search for quite a while, and this is why this is the perfect card for me. So I had a save search for an SGC 8, which I think VCP average value on that is about $700, $800, somewhere in that range for an 8. I've got a lot of them saved on eBay that sellers are asking $1,100, $1,200 for, and that's a pretty high premium to pay for eye appeal. You're looking at 150% of comps if it's, you know, an $800 card by comps, and they're asking $1,200 for it. Like, that's a pretty steep price to pay based on eye appeal. And so for me, it just makes more sense to pay half the price to get a 7. So the dealer had 5 price tags on this card, and he was a little bit, he wasn't hard to deal with at all. He was just pretty firm on his price. So he had $450 on this card, and I thought that that wasn't bad based off of the eye appeal and the recent comps. And so I asked him if he could do any better on it, and he said he had a feeling that I was going to ask him that, and he was already pulling up the comps on it. And he said, well, that card, and I don't know if he got it mixed up with another card, but he told me recently that this card had been going in the $700 range, and I kind of just shrugged at him, because it hasn't been selling that high, number one, and number two, if it had been selling that high 2 or 3 weeks ago, though, and that was the price, that's no longer the price for the card now. I'll pay the price for the card now. I'm not going to pay the price for the card 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? So I didn't really have much to say to him other than just shrugging my shoulders like, I don't know what to tell you. But he had 5 price tags on it. Tom peeled them off as we were on the way back when he was looking at the card. So when I bought it, it had a price tag of $450. Right before that, it had a price tag of, I think it was $375. Then it had a price tag before that of $500. And then I think the bottom price tag was $425, which is what I ended up paying for the card. So this card, to the best of my recollection, hasn't been at $700 in probably 3-4 years. I'm just guessing. So that's not to to bash this dealer by any means, but this just kind of can show you the delicate dance that can be made between a dealer and a potential customer, because I was going to buy it at 450 even if he didn't come down, knowing that I was going to overpay by about 25 bucks. But again, for me, for the eye appeal, it's worth it. And I would have paid 450 for it and been fine, but he came down to 470 to 425, so I was happy to pick it up at that. But when you look at the difference between a 7 on this card, which recent comps are, the VCP average price is about 420, right around there, and an 8, like I said, is like $700 or $800. So a 7 is half the price of an 8. So I would love to have an 8. Heck, I'd love to have a 9 or a 10. But for me, I would rather pay half of the cost of an 8 and just buy a 7, because it's still a really sharp card. And I'm going to save $300-400 bucks by buying one just one grade lower. And I know this is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and you've heard me say it. I'm not a huge fan of the term collector grade and investor grade, because I think they're too broad of terms. And I could make an entirely new video based off of my thoughts on collector grade and investor grade. But a lot of times when you go from the air quotes investor grade to an air quotes collector, or from a collector grade to an investor grade, that happens. Like, there's a big jump in there between collector grade and investor grade. And for me, depending on the price of the card, it's hard for me to justify paying double the money to go up one grade. And a lot of times, if they're cards from the 60s, like, I won't even buy a 6. I'll buy a 5, because some of these cards, the difference between them is hundreds of dollars. Like my 60 Topps Mickey Mantle, for an example. When I bought my 5, they were at like 800, and a 6 was at 1300. So you're looking at another $500 to go from a 5 to a 6. And for me, I just can't justify that. So I'm going to buy the card that fits my budget, that best meets my eye appeal. And in this case, if it was a 7, then that's great. If it's an 8, that's great. If it's a 7.5 or a 6.5, that's great. I'm going to buy the best version eye appeal card that I can comfortably fit within my budget. And it worked out perfectly on this one, so that's why I jumped on it. So again, awesome card. Possibly, and in my opinion, the best third baseman of all time. Now, of course, that's arguable. People could throw Brooks Robinson in there. People could throw Eddie Matthews in there, and no one could really argue. But in my opinion, Mike Schmidt is the best third baseman of all time. So I'm super happy to add this to the collection. This one will be in the display case pretty soon. So once again, this coming Saturday, we have the show in Boonville. Whatever I don't move at that show is going back in my case, and it's going to be what I start rebuilding my collection with. And so I would like to sell every single one of them, but if I don't sell any, that's fine too, because really I'm just going to this show to support my buddy Justin and to hang out with other YouTubers that are coming into town, and to hang out with all my local buddies. Anything above and beyond that is just icing on the cake. So for me, I'm there to set up and have a good time, but whatever I have left is coming back with me, and it's going to start the process of filling these cases back up, and I'm pretty excited to do so. So once again, to me, Mike Schmidt, the best third baseman of all time. For me, Mike Schmidt is the most expensive rookie card in the 70s. George Brett's close, but Mike Schmidt is considerably more expensive than George Brett, and this is a big one for me to knock out. Now, I know I've talked about before, and I'll do a future video on this. My plan is to work forward in rookie cards from the 40s. Like, I want to start with the older stuff and move forward. But the older it is, the harder it is to find at shows. And so, you know, the debate in my brain is, okay, there's no 1940s Hall of Fame rookie cards here, either graded or ungraded at the right price. Do I not buy anything at this show and bring my money back home with me? Or do I go ahead and buy a card like this that is still, you know, a card that I want to add to my collection? It's just not from the 40s or the 50s. Like, to me, I'm probably going to buy the card 9 times out of 10, depending on what the card is. So there were no 40s Hall of Famer rookie cards, but if I held out and waited for those, like, who knows how long it's going to take for me to find something at a show. If I buy it off of eBay, I'm going to overpay for it 9 times out of 10. But more than likely, I would have to find that at a bigger show, and that would be Strongsville or the National. And I'm probably not going to the National this year. Strongsville is, 10 months away. So am I gonna hold out for 10 months waiting to buy a 40s Hall of Fame rookie card? Which maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea, because then I could save up enough money to buy a 39 play ball Ted Williams rookie card. But again, this is part of the delicate dance I do within my brain when it comes to figuring out the best way to work my budget to improve my collection. So again, 9 times out of 10, I'm just going to go ahead and buy the card that makes sense to buy at that show, even though I want to start with the older stuff and work my way forward. And they had a lot of Hall of Fame rookie cards from the 50s. They had a few from the 40s. They had a Red Schoendienst 48 Bowman. But I can't remember that it was really off-centered, and that bothered me, because I looked at it and I thought about picking it up, and that's just why I didn't jump on that. It was like shifted really far over to the left and was almost miscut. Like, the border on the right side was more than double than the border on the left side, and I'm a little neurotic when it comes to eye appeal on cards. So that's why I came home with this one, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have it. So, man, I'm rambling. I can tell. Well, I always ramble, but I can tell that I've been very hit or miss on my videos, because my brain is all over the place, which for me is never a good thing. So I'm over 20 minutes in showing you one card and talking about a card show. So thanks to Chris and Tom. I'm glad it was able to work out where we were all able to get together to go to this show. And I'm happy to have this show under my belt for the first time, the Machinist Hall show in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up at that. So again, thank you as always for your support. And if you're not already subscribed, if you would do so, I'd appreciate that. Drop this video a like if you would as well. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later.